My name is Alice, 28 years old. I work in childcare. Recently, I got engaged to my boyfriend Tom, and I've come to visit his parents' house for the first time. Tom is a graduate of a prestigious university and works for a renowned company. Not only is he smart, but he also has the respect of his colleagues. I've always admired him as a person. His father welcomed our marriage, even saying, "We never had a daughter. Your future mother-in-law will be thrilled." However, I've been bothered by the fact that my future mother-in-law, sitting next to him, seems upset. She's grimacing, almost as if she's angry. While I was observing her, she suddenly asked, "I heard you didn't graduate high school. Is that true?" Our Tom is an elite, having graduated from a famous university. You think I'd approve of a marriage between an elite and someone of your status? I was taken aback when she started to insult me. "Mother-in-law, how can you say such things? You're being rude to Alice." Tom and his father stood up for me against my future mother-in-law. However, this only seemed to upset her more. Isn't it natural for a mother to be concerned about the education and occupation of her son's future spouse? Children inherit their mother's DNA, don't they? Don't I want to leave behind excellent genes? It seemed like my mother-in-law wasn't going to approve of me, a high school dropout, because she wanted to ensure the excellence of her offspring. While it's true that some people are obsessed with educational backgrounds, and many parents care deeply about education, it felt sad to be opposed solely because I dropped out of high school. Actually, there was a reason I didn't finish high school. I grew up in a single-parent home after my father died in a traffic accident. My mother was frail and had a hard time raising me and my twin sister, Emma. Wanting to alleviate my mother's burden, I started working after middle school. Now, I'm attending night school to get my high school diploma. I'm saving up money, and I can even go to college if I want. Tom is supportive of this and has even offered to help pay for my college education. Tom understands my home environment, and if I want it, he will pay for my college expenses. Tom is such a kind person, and that's one of the reasons I decided to marry him. But my future mother-in-law seems to dislike this. Tom is an only child, so we will be living with his parents in the future. But I'm a little worried about how that will work out. A while later, I moved into my future in-law's house. At this point, there was only a month left until our wedding. As the wedding day approached, I had to make more trips to the wedding venue for final checks. I had to make sure to reserve hotels for our guests, who would be coming from afar. Between work, school, and wedding preparations, I was very busy, but my mother-in-law didn't seem too pleased with how I was. Today, I was applying makeup to head to the venue, and she suddenly exclaimed, "Oh my, what on earth are you wearing?" My mother-in-law, catching sight of my outfit, blurted it out loud. I'm about to head to the venue, so I thought I'd dress up. Whether she was displeased with me dressing up to go to the venue, or just seizing the opportunity to berate me, I couldn't say. "Oh, you say you're going to the venue, but you're just dressing like that to attract men, aren't you? You're such a careless woman." She just decided I was meeting a man instead of going to the venue. I was at a loss for words. I told her I was meeting Tom at the venue, and if she had doubts, she could ask him, but she just assumed I was meeting a man. Then, the next moment, my mother-in-law did something outrageous. She messed up my carefully styled hair. "Hey, what are you doing, mother-in-law? I spent so much time getting ready. This is terrible." With my hair a mess, I couldn't go out and had to fix it. But seeing my disheveled hair, my mother-in-law cheerfully said, "There's no need to fix it. This hairstyle suits a high school dropout poor woman like you. You should wear your hair like this for the wedding." Since I was already running late, I quickly fixed my hair and headed to the venue where Tom was waiting. Tom was waiting for me at the entrance of the venue and seemed concerned about my downcast expression. I was torn whether to tell him what happened earlier, but I thought it wasn't good to talk about something so depressing when we were about to discuss the ceremony, so I decided not to tell Tom at that time. One day, when it was almost time for the wedding, my mother-in-law suddenly made this suggestion. "Hey, Alice's mom lives far away, doesn't she? It must be tough for her to come, and she'll have to pay for a hotel, so why doesn't she stay at our house?" Tom and I were both surprised by my mother-in-law's sudden proposal. Indeed, if we could save on hotel costs, my mother would be happy, and it would also facilitate interaction between our families. Tom suggested I ask my mother about the proposal, so I asked her right away. My mother was very pleased with my mother-in-law's proposal, and it was decided that my twin sister Emma would also come that day. I initially thought that mother-in-law was making the suggestion out of goodwill, but I could never have imagined the outrageous things she would do next. The day before the wedding, my mother and sister came to stay at my in-laws' house. Seeing my mother and sister, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, made me very happy. I have a particularly close relationship with my sister, and we were so happy to see each other after a long time that we decided to sleep together that night. Emma, who had been drinking, fell asleep right away. No matter what happens, Emma won't wake up once she's like this. Just when I was thinking that it was getting late and I should get some sleep too, I suddenly felt the door to our room open. As I was wondering what it could be, I heard a loud buzzing sound, followed by the noise of something being shaved. "Now you won't be able to attend tomorrow's ceremony, will you? No need for hair for a poor middle school dropout." The moment I heard that, shocked, I turned on the room lights and said, "Mother-in-law, what are you doing?" The person in the bed suddenly sat up, startling my mother-in-law as well. Mother-in-law, you're Alice, aren't you?" She seemed to have mistaken me for Emma. "That's not my hair. We're twins, and our faces really look alike. But it wasn't me whose hair was shaved with clippers. It was my sister, Emma." "What? No way. Why wasn't it Alice?" My mother-in-law seemed to be in shock, but Emma, who had apparently drunk too much, was sound asleep. When she wakes up in the morning and realizes her hair has been shaved off, Emma will surely be very angry. Unlike me, Emma has a strong temperament, so it's obvious she'll be furious. "What will you do now, mother-in-law? I'm not going to cover for you." Feeling guilty, perhaps, my mother-in-law left the room with a pale face. The next day, Emma looked in the mirror and was shocked and furious to find that she was bald. Our mother, who was present at the scene, also shed tears in shock, and Tom could not hide his disturbance. "It's terrible. Who on earth did this?" So I revealed everything that had happened yesterday in front of everyone. I was wondering what kind of face my mother-in-law would wake up with this morning, but she wasn't there. According to my father-in-law, she said she was going for an early morning walk and hadn't returned yet. I thought she had run away, so I revealed everything to our relatives and decided to search for mother-in-law. About 30 minutes later, I got a call from a relative saying they had found her in a nearby convenience store, and my father-in-law headed for that store. My mother-in-law, who had no idea she was being searched for, was full of excuses as soon as she came home. "I didn't do anything. It's all Alice's fault." Alice used the clippers on her own and cleanly shaved off Emma's hair while she was sleeping next to her. To my surprise, my mother-in-law was trying to pin the blame on me. This shocked me, and I couldn't help but retort, Don't be ridiculous. I didn't do anything. Wasn't it you who came into the room yesterday? It's terrible that you're still lying at this point. But even so, my mother-in-law was reluctant to admit her guilt. Then my father-in-law, as if he had remembered something, went outside and came back with something. Alice, could this be the clipper? Looking at the clipper father-in-law was holding, it was undoubtedly the one mother-in-law used last night to shear off Emma's hair. That's it. That's the clipper. But where was it? It seems this clipper originally belonged to father-in-law, who was always concerned about his appearance and always carried grooming tools with him. When they went to the car, the bag containing his grooming tools was ransacked, and the clipper was the only thing missing. I always leave my car keys in the bedroom. If there's brown hair in this clipper, it's definite that the culprit is your mom, he said. Father-in-law started to dismantle the clipper. Inside there was a brown hair, undoubtedly Emma's. She must have rushed out in the dark and couldn't properly dispose of the hair inside. Seeing the remaining hair, mother-in-law collapsed to her knees. Alice, it's your fault. Despite being a middle school dropout and poor, you deceived smart Tom. I wanted you to give up on Tom at all costs. I became disgusted at mother-in-law's selfish words. The one who got angriest upon hearing that was Emma, whose hair had been shaved off. I don't care about your circumstances. What are you going to do about this? I can't attend the wedding like this, Emma complained. Hearing Emma's complaint, father-in-law made a call somewhere. His acquaintance, a hairdresser, agreed to rush over with a wig right away. This would temporarily solve Emma's hair problem, but they couldn't just leave mother-in-law as is. 30 minutes later, father-in-law's friend arrived with the wig, and Emma's hair was now beautiful. At first, father-in-law thought about shaving mother-in-law's hair just like she did with Emma, but it didn't feel satisfying. He decided to expose mother-in-law's wrongdoing in front of everyone. Among the attendees called today were landlords whom mother-in-law's parents had been indebted to for generations. They seemed to get along with father-in-law, and hearing about this incident would undoubtedly impact mother-in-law's parents' house. The landlord, who was close friends with them, has been giving them a discount on their apartment rent. The landlord is a very righteous person and would surely return the rent to its original price once he learns what mother-in-law has done. Worst case scenario, he might even evict them from the apartment. Mother-in-law's parents are poor and have no money. If they were to be evicted, they would surely come to mother-in-law's place. But I had heard from Tom before that mother-in-law didn't get along with her parents and wouldn't even care for them. Living with her parents would undoubtedly be the beginning of hell for mother-in-law. Wait, please. I'll be in trouble if you do that. I'm sorry, it was my fault. I got carried away and did such a thing. I'm sorry, Emma. I'll pay you damages, so please forgive me. Mother-in-law kept apologizing repeatedly, to the point of rubbing her forehead against the floor. But even with apologies, Emma's hair will not come back. After discussion, it was decided that father-in-law and Tom would reveal the wrongdoings of mother-in-law. Of course, Emma had already agreed to this. Mother-in-law said she didn't want to go to the wedding and tried to run away, but she couldn't because Emma and Tom held her back. Upon arrival at the venue, relatives who knew the situation through messages came to us looking very worried. We exposed mother-in-law's wrongdoing in front of the relatives, and Emma took off her wig and showed her bald head. Everyone was shocked by Emma's condition, especially the women who kept saying they couldn't believe it. Hair for a woman is like a lifeline. Imagine the shock of having it suddenly shaved off with a clipper. Thinking of Emma, some people were in tears. Then, as expected, the landlord came to mother-in-law and asked if what happened was true. At first, mother-in-law tried to deceive him, but father-in-law urged her to tell the truth, and she finally confessed. The landlord, flushed with anger, was also accused by the women. After that, mother-in-law remained downcast during the ceremony, which was unimaginable from her usually spirited self. The wedding itself ended smoothly, and it was a great joy to be blessed by many people. However, we could no longer live with mother-in-law in that house. It's only natural, but we decided to move into an apartment and live as a couple. Mother-in-law was panicked about us leaving the house. She cried out that it was her fault and begged us not to leave, but we couldn't live with her. Father-in-law felt the same. He told mother-in-law that he was going to divorce her and asked her to leave the house. Mother-in-law turned pale and clung to father-in-law, saying, "Please reconsider. Where will I live if I leave this house? You know, don't you, that I'm not getting along with my parents? If they find out about the divorce, they'll definitely tell me to come back for their care." She was trembling, as if she could collapse at any moment. But when I think about Emma, I don't care about mother-in-law. I never dreamed that my hair would be shaved off while I was sleeping and mistaken for me. Mother-in-law persistently tried to persuade us afterward. But since father-in-law contacted mother-in-law's parents, she reluctantly left the house. Currently, mother-in-law is living with her estranged parents and seems to be taking care of them. But apparently, her parents have a difficult personality, and mother-in-law is being completely worn out by their selfishness. She has called us several times to say she wants to start over, but we have no intention of living with her, so we just blocked her calls. Now we are living happily with father-in-law in his home. The house was quite old, so we decided to renovate it together. Father-in-law built his dream study. Tom created a place to display model figures, and I decided to install a state-of-the-art kitchen. Of course, we also created a room for the child who will be born in the future, and now the three of us are living comfortably. Emma's hair, which was shaved at that time, has now grown short and seems to be highly rated by her friends as a good change of image. She talks about that time as if it were a joke, telling various friends, and it actually complicates my feelings more. Emma, for her part, occasionally comes over for sleepovers at our family home, and I look forward to that. There may be many difficulties in the future, but I believe we can all work together and push through.